It was still sanctioned in 49 states until 1972. It was even sanctioned, according to Antonin Scalia, in about 24 states in 2003 when the Lawrence v. Texas ruling came down. I counted up about 12 or 14, but somewhere in that neighborhood still had public policies that prohibited homosexual behavior, did not give it legal sanction. It was prohibited. It was against the law under their state code. And so I believe, I'll just speak for myself here, I believe that homosexual behavior should again be contrary to public policy. To put it bluntly, it ought to be against the law. So then the question becomes, well, what kind of sanctions are you prepared to propose? If it's going to be against the law and the law is going to be applied, somebody is apprehended in a way that calls into play this law, this public policy against homosexual behavior, what should be done? What should be done with these offenders? And that's a legitimate question. Do you put them to death like they did under the Mosaic Code? Do you lock them up? Do you fine them? What do you do? Well, I want to suggest something, and this just absolutely tees off homosexual activists, but it makes perfectly good sense to me. And that is that, remember, we've talked about this before. I won't belabor it, but according to the CDC, you heard Matt Staver in the last segment referring to the Centers for Disease Control. This is a government agency listing all of the statistics for the HIV/AIDS epidemic since it began. And I think 60 to 61% of all of the males who've ever been diagnosed with HIV/AIDS contracted it through having sex with other males. Now, there's about another 22% that contracted it through intravenous drug abuse, and about another 8 or 9%, they're not sure. It could either be injection drug abuse or it could be having sex with other men. They don't know. So anyway, you're looking at 91% of all of the males in the history of the epidemic either contracted HIV/AIDS through having sex with other men or through injection drug abuse. Now, we have policies in our culture to deal with injection drug abuse. We want to get these people help. It's contrary to public policy to use these prohibited drugs. And of course, if something's going to be against the law, you've got to have some sort of sanctions for that. You know, if you get a parking ticket, there's a sanction for that. You got to pay a fine of 10 or 15 bucks or whatever the case is. You get caught speeding, there's a sanction for that. You got to pay a fine. So you have some sanction. It can range all the way from a slap on the hand, just a fine, all the way from being required to forfeit your life in the case of murder. So there's a whole range of sanctions that could be imposed. Now, here's my suggestion. Very simple, very straightforward, that our sanctions for homosexual conduct should be the same as they are for drug abuse. In other words, whatever we decide are appropriate public policies to deal with drug abuse, those ought to be the same policies that we use in dealing with homosexual behavior, because the risks are the same. If we're concerned about the health of people involved in injection drug abuse, we want to protect them, we want to liberate them from this, and we're going to have certain policies in place to deal with that. It could involve fines. It could involve incarceration. We're seeing a real trend now, and that's what I want to talk about here for a moment, seeing a real trend for people who deal in the drug issue to move away from incarceration for nonviolent drug offenders, to move toward rehabilitation. Let's put these people in therapy. Let's get them in a drug treatment center. Rather than lock them up, let's get them help.